Hello you, welcome to Geekism and happy Paralives launch day. If my time is correct, when this video comes out you'll all be diving in, making paras, checking out some of those early access bugs firsthand. Remember to offer feedback constructively and positively and keep your expectations in check. I made a whole video a few days ago about early access, what it means for the game and for you as a player. If you haven't already, you should check it out. Anyway, moving on with today's build. My first proper family home, a Dutch Colonial build. This one was a ton of work as the quintessential gambrel roof and dormer windows were a little tricky to do with the current in-game roof tools. I'm happy with how it's turned out though. This is a style I definitely want to come back to and finesse when those tools are updated. And what a style it is. A home that somehow feels both grand and cozy at the same time. It's an architectural style you've definitely seen before, especially if you're in the eastern United States. Even if you didn't know its name, you'll know the look. Swooping gambrel roofs, symmetrical facades, shutters on dormer windows, and an old world charm that evokes farmhouse barns and rolling Dutch fields. To understand Dutch colonial architecture, we have to travel back to the 1600s. Back then, the Dutch were heavily involved with global trade and colonisation. One of their settlements they established around this time was New Netherland, along the east coast of America. This eventually became the state of New York, and as for the city of the same name, as the four lads, and later they might be giants, put it, even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Before it was skyscrapers, yellow taxicabs and quaps coffee, it was a Dutch colony, and the settlers who arrived there brought their building traditions with them. Now, unlike the revival build I'm working on here, original Dutch colonial homes were actually pretty practical and modest structures. They were built for durability above all else, and whilst the settlers were more used to timber construction, a lot of early examples on American soil were brick and stone due to timber being less abundant. The builders adapted their techniques to the materials available in the colonies, and over time the style became a blend of European tradition and North American practicality. The buildings were built low to the ground with thick walls, large fireplaces, compact layouts to hold warmth effectively during the harsh Atlantic winters, with one of the most recognisable features, the gambrel roof, allowing homeowners to maximise usable space on the upper floor without technically having to build a full additional story. That roof shape would eventually become the defining feature of the style. I want to take a moment to talk more about that roof, as it really is the start of the show. But before I do, if you're enjoying the video, it would mean a lot if you left a like and let me know in the comments. I'm trying to bring something a little different to the live sim community with these historically focused builds, and I'm still finding my feet, but the feedback so far has been incredible and has warmed my heart. I have lots more plans, so please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks. The term gambrel comes from the Latin gambra and refers to a hook used by hunters and butchers to hang slaughtered animals by their hind legs. Lovely. The shape of this hook is reminiscent of the roof, symmetrical with two different slopes on each side, a shallow lower slope and then a steeper upper one. The silhouette is one that should seem very familiar, used throughout North America on barns and farm outbuildings due to the steeper lower slope providing much more headroom on the upper floors compared to a standard pitch roof. So instead of cramped attic rooms where you can often only stand in the middle, Dutch colonial homes could have surprisingly spacious second floors. It's a very efficient design, and honestly one thing I love about older architectural style, how often beauty comes from practicality. A gambrel roof isn't shaped this way because somebody thought, well, this will look great on Pinterest in 400 years. It's shaped this way because people needed more space, but over time that practicality became part of the aesthetic. Nowadays, when people see a gambrel roof, it instantly communicates warmth, tradition and nostalgia, which is absolutely on purpose, as they are most likely looking at a replica. During the late 1800s, America went through a huge architectural revival. There was a growing fascination with earlier colonial styles, including Dutch, but also French, Spanish, Georgian, and others that we'll get to on the channel in due time. Partly driven by nostalgia, partly nationalism, and partly because people were becoming a little exhausted with the industrial age and wanted architecture and design that felt more traditional and handcrafted. So architects started revisiting older colonial styles and reimagining them for modern living. These revival versions that I'm attempting to replicate here tended to be larger and more ostentatious, with wider floor plans, larger windows with decorative shutters, elegant front porches and balconies, and elaborate dormers. As far as the interiors go, there is a style to Dutch colonial interiors, but it's a little old-fashioned for my tastes. Something I do want to attempt in the game at some point, but not for this build. It didn't feel right. I wanted instead to sort of show a modern retelling of a Dutch colonial space. So imagine this house has been renovated and he's fairly staged. I really wanted to go for like a real clean, the sort of thing you'd find in an architectural magazine. So there's very little clutter here. Everything is very purposefully placed. They've even done that ridiculous thing where they put their books backwards. This is something I've seen in various like interior design trends. I think it's a trend that kind of came and went, thank God. But yeah, the idea is you turn all your books around so that they just the sort of slight different variations of beige show out with little lines of colour, and it sort of makes it look a little bit more neutral. I get it from like a purely design point of view. It does look quite nice, but the idea of not being able to know what any of your books are just seems very performative. Like, why own books and not have them there to read? So yeah, I'm not always going to be doing stuff I love in these. I'm going to be doing stuff that I think works well for the build. And putting the books the wrong way around is definitely something I don't do in my own home, but it just felt right here in this sort of very sort of set out, nicely laid out space. Trying to get a lot of artwork. I do think I'm going to need to spend an hour or two on the internet just finding lots of art that I can add to the game. There's a really great selection to begin with, but I definitely feel like I'm just never going to have enough, and you'll start to see the same recurring patterns. They've done a really good job of keeping it quite varied. There's some nice sort of modern images, very sort of like just blobs of colour and shapes, and a few cartoons. There's ones that look like photographs of animals and paras, and then there's a selection of sort of I don't even know what you would call it necessarily, but the sort of fake shop posters, the coffee posters and things like that. And then there's even a little bit of like live, laugh, love kind of stuff as well. All of that is really great and works in various builds, but yeah, I think I'm going to need more of it, so I'm going to spend some time getting some so that you see a little bit of variation on these builds moving forward. Moving on to the dining room then, there's a very slight nautical vibe to most of the downstairs, which is kind of something that happened by accident. It wasn't something I was actively trying to do, but after I used a couple of teal and blue tones in the build, it just started veering that way. I get some comments about how I come up with this sort of stuff in the first place on not only Paralives, but on lots of the other games I play as well, like Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo. And honestly, a lot of the time I am just sort of fumbling through and keep doing stuff until it looks right. Here, for instance, I wanted to go for a real splash of colour with the plates, but in the end, that goes away. Again, this sort of, I think it might have been this blue and white stripe runner here that really made me start to think, oh, let's lean into the nautical look here. So but I don't. I end up actually going back and toning it down a little bit. So sometimes it's just I'm just grabbing pieces and finding what looks nice. Other times I will use reference points, and the kitchen here, for instance, is based on a reference from just a blog post I found about somebody renovating a kitchen from a Dutch colonial home. Actually, I was just looking for exterior images, and then this popped up, and I thought, oh, that's lovely. It uses this lovely dark blue here with like a marble countertop, and then there's a wooden countertop island. Messing around with the sink there to try and make it look like a true Belfast sink. Couldn't really do it without stuff starting to clip too bad. I'm sure a Belfast sink is coming. Again, I don't know if any modders watch me, but if you do, please let's have a Belfast sink. It would be amazing in a lot of these historical builds, or at least sort of period builds, not necessarily historical. Like I say, this is actually a kitchen that's maybe been built 5 or 10 years ago, but a lot of these that are done well will sort of take reference from the past. So that's why you still see things like Belfast sinks going into new kitchens, because they're beautiful, you know. Wanted to do a double cooker there. I think it looks like a large cooker as opposed to just two cookers next to each other. Hopefully, again, mechanically it's fine. And on this beautiful kitchen renovation that I found, there was this lower bit of counter, and there was actually like 7 or 8 rolling pins attached to the wall. The person is like a serial professional rolling pinner. But I just love that idea. It's a real nice little vignette that I've not seen before, so we replicate it there. Those hooks are actually washing line hooks, but if you just place the first one down and then deselect it, it'll just stay on the wall as a hook and works out quite neatly. Here then in the middle, this wooden countertop with a bit of a breakfast bar, and again it's a staged house, so you've got to have your fruit bowl and your basket of bread. You know, it's the whole what was the woman with the bowl of limes? What's the name of the woman who had the bowl of limes? Dakota Johnson's bowl of limes. There we go. Thank you. Small little downstairs water closet, and it actually gets even smaller. One of the things I'm really finding quite impressive about the game is how small you can go with spaces and make them very realistic. A lot of the time in The Sims or in other live sim games, everything's really still fixed to a grid without having to do quite a bit of work to get it off that grid, and it means you end up with these sort of like 4-meter square bathrooms, when in actual fact a lot of small water closets can be 1 meter wide, and there's only just enough room to sort of scooch past the toilet bowl to get to it. And I love the fact that in this game you can do that, and you know, for the most part the paras are happy with it. They will occasionally clip through stuff, but for the most part it's actually really quite great how small you can get them. So from the original plan to what you're looking at now, those rooms have actually been shrunk down once I realised you could. There's one last room in the downstairs, originally built as a sort of second reception room. A lot of the time these homes will have a one room, 2 living rooms basically. One space that usually has a TV, and then a second space that's just sort of seating area. I didn't do a TV in this build. You could absolutely throw one above the fireplace and it would work fine. So here instead I made this into a guest bedroom. Obviously you could also have basements as well, but they're still coming. You can do walkout basements if you're clever and tricky with some terrain, which we might try and do, like a split level. But true basements, as in actually the whole space in the ground, currently isn't possible. Okay, moving upstairs then into the master bedroom. Again, wanted to kind of keep this very clean, very sort of staged look, using some beautiful paneling on the wall here to sort of give it a bit of an accent, spending way too long picking the perfect red. And then the accent color here is like a blue again, just kind of keeping that nautical vibe just running through. Originally was going to have a regular table lamp there, but a lot of stuff I'm finding online now are doing this, where there's 2 ceiling lamps just brought down over the side tables, and I really love it. I think it looks fantastic. So again, if the budget allows, if it's a higher budget build like this one is, you know, it is meant to be a nicely done out family home. We might be doing more of that sort of stuff. Here, for instance, a couple of pictures of ducks. I'd love a different option there, like an image of 3 that we can use there. So definitely something I'm going to be doing and going and grabbing images. Storage is a little light on this house. It very often is in older houses that have then been refurbished, because you can do clever things with the space, but at some point you have just got the space that you've got. They would maybe have to carve out some of the bathroom space to create a walk-in closet, but here with the layout of the dormer windows there, and having to do a lot of, I mean, you'll see all the bits of roof around there that's making it work. It's not attractive, unfortunately, but with the layout there, it's got that little alcove, and it just worked perfectly for a walk-in shower. So yeah, we did that instead, but there is an option of chopping that off and turning it into a closet. Moving the bed around to another side, you know, there's all things you can do. I'm saying that because my plan is to put this onto the Steam Workshop. I'll be honest with you, I still haven't figured that out, because at time of recording most of this, the game wasn't out, and I think the workshop wasn't fully live yet. The game is out now, but unfortunately we're having our driveway retarmacked, and the workers cut through the internet cable. Luckily the game still loads. I'm now rendering this video onto a hard drive and having like a separate hard drive, and having to take it into my where I work and uploading it there. So I'm jumping through lots of hoops to get this to you today, so you better appreciate it. But yeah, no, overall I'm really happy with this. We're doing some exterior stuff now, playing around a little bit more with the terrain tools, but this is still a very flat lot. I've really got to build myself up to working with terrain. I think there's some really great stuff you can do with it. The terrain cuts away when you get to walls, so yeah, there's going to be some really great stuff you can do. We did a slight garage on the side there. It is empty. You could probably put some work tools and stuff in there, especially as the game develops and the live mode gets like mechanic desks and things like that, and the mechanic skill and all that sort of stuff. I think there is a repair skill. I don't think there's something in the game that helps improve it though, other than repairing items. I'm not sure. Like I say, I'm not a live mode player, honestly. I'm sorry. I like building the stuff. But the garage there, you could put that sort of stuff in if you wanted to, and obviously, you know, eventually if we get cars, they'll go in there as well. The door is just a regular door scaled right up using the gizmo. Hopefully that doesn't cause too many issues with play. I don't know what happens if a para tries to walk through that door, if it glitches out or what have you. Every time I tried to get them to it, they actually went around and through the kitchen. So maybe they just don't recognize it as a door, and that's fine, I guess, until we get proper garage doors in the future. I'm sure we will. Nice heavy foliage here. This is a relatively upmarket home, the sort of place that's going to have nice gardens, nicely kept gardens, either by the family themselves or by bringing somebody in, I guess. And then finally a little bit of picket fencing and some light foliage around the outside. And we'll finish off with some glamour shots to have a look at the whole place. I apologise, there is no footage of the kids' bedroom being built. I don't know whether it's just me forgetting to press record or if I am having some issues with the recording software I use not kicking in with Paralives, because that's a couple of times that's happened now. In the last build there was a room missing as well. I do apologise for that. But overall, I hope you're happy with this. I'm really happy with it. For a first build, really, there you go, you see the roof in its full glory there. First build using the roof tools. I picked a hell of a roof to try and do. You know, a build that really is sort of lives or dies on its roof, and I think it's turned out pretty well. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. I think there's something incredibly comforting about this style. Honestly, it feels timeless in a way that a lot of architecture doesn't, and hopefully now next time you spot one of those iconic gambrel roofs, you'll know a little bit more about the history behind it. Let me know if there's any specific architectural styles you'd like to see on the channel next. I'm just going to work through stuff I like the look of and try and keep it varied. So for every traditional build, you'll see a more modern build, and I'll keep varying it. But I'm always happy to take suggestions, so please let me know down below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Love you all to bits. Till the next one, be good.